Exposed Truth, a woman's incredible journey home. What he said changed her life forever. Amelia stood outside the bustling urban hospital in Chicago, the cold wind nipping at her face as she sipped her lukewarm coffee. The late shift had drained her, exhaustion tugging heavy at her heart. Yet, every tick of the clock reminded her, she was not just a nurse. She was a daughter, a caretaker to a proud veteran who fought battles of his own, battles that echoed in their small apartment. She pushed those thoughts away, focusing instead on the chaos inside the ER, where life clung desperately to its breath, and death lingered just a heartbeat away. Every day was a whirlwind of emotions. Joy and sorrow wove through the sterile hallways, the beeping machines amplifying the fragility of life. But amidst all the chaos, a hollow despair grew inside her. This was her life, facing life-altering decisions every day at work, yet feeling trapped when she came home. Her relationship with her father, once filled with laughter and stories of valor, now felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm of unspoken fear and misunderstandings. The pressure of caring for him while trying to make ends meet was suffocating. One chilly autumn evening, the air was sharp as knives when she encountered Mr. Thompson, an elderly community leader known for his wisdom. His weathered face carried decades of stories. He sat across from her at a nearby coffee shop, steam swirling around their mugs like memories trapped in time. "You know, Amelia," he began, his voice gravelly but kind, "life knocks you down. But every setback is just a setup for a great comeback." His words hit hard, a lightning bolt of validation in her weary life. For the first time in ages, a flicker of hope ignited within her. But that hope was snuffed out just as swiftly. When she returned home, a heated argument erupted between her and her father, one that left her heart shattered. She felt alone, her dreams of a better life tangled in a web of disappointment and love. Determined to change her fate, Amelia leaped into advocacy, fighting for better healthcare access in their neighborhood. She put her heart and soul into it, rioting against a system built on privilege that often left her and her neighbors stranded. Each step forward brought fresh challenges, stoking the fire in her that demanded change. Under her passionate guidance, the community began to rally meeting after meeting, voices rising together while their struggles echoed off the walls. But just when the path seemed promising, life threw its cruelest curve. Her father was hospitalized due to a traumatic flashback. Pain shot through her chest as she sank into a waiting room chair, surrounded by the steady hum of machinery and sorrow. Her mission felt meaningless now. How could she fight for others when her own family was crumbling? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Then, like a breath of fresh air, Mr. Thompson appeared again. His urgency filled the room. "Amelia," he said, "your fight isn't just for today. It's for tomorrow and every tomorrow after. Your father fought for a cause bigger than himself, just like you." Tears stung her eyes, his words piercing through the fog of doubt that had enveloped her. As she prepared to confront her father, the weight of her decisions loomed heavy. She knew this was just the beginning of a battle that would test not only her advocacy but also the fragile bond with her father. Would facing him bring healing, or would it further the divide? The uncertainty gripped at her heart as she took a shaky breath, ready to step into the storm. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air as Amelia stepped into her father's hospital room. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor pulsed like a ticking clock, counting down the moments she wished she could borrow from time itself. Her heart raced as she looked at him, lying there, frail and vulnerable, a stark contrast to the man who once faced the battlefield with unwavering courage. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. She wanted to reach out and take his hand, to clasp it tightly as though she could transfer some of her strength to him. But a part of her hesitated, fear creeping in like a shadow. What was left to say? Would the words she had rehearsed even make it past her lips? His eyes fluttered open, the fog of confusion clearing momentarily. There was a flicker of recognition, and then a deep furrow appeared on his brow. Amelia? He rasped, his voice a fragile echo of the man she'd known. It broke her heart, each syllable a reminder of how far they had drifted. Yeah, it's me, she managed to say, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. I'm here. He watched her through heavy-lidded eyes, but his silence spoke volumes. A million things loomed unspoken between them, years of hurt and misunderstanding hanging in the air. This wasn't just a visit, it was a reckoning. I'm scared, Dad, she admitted, her voice trembling. Things are so hard right now. I thought we could face it together, but she trailed off, not able to articulate the weight of the truth. His gaze softened, perhaps he felt the tremor in her heart. Amelia, he finally spoke, the words slow and deliberate. I've been fighting my own battles for a long time. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. I know, but you don't have to fight alone anymore. It felt like an offer, a bridge over the gulf of pain that separated them. Alone is all I've ever known, he replied, regret lacing his tone. I never wanted to burden you. Amelia felt the sting of those words. They were the walls he had built around them, walls that had kept her out just as much as they had kept his demons at bay. But I want to help, Dad. I'm not just your daughter, I'm your ally. I need you. We need each other. For a long moment, silence wrapped around them. She could see the struggle etched on his face, the years of suppressing thoughts and fears crashing down like a carefully constructed dam. I'm sorry, he finally whispered, the apology hanging heavy. I didn't think you'd understand. I want to understand. But we need to talk about it. We can't keep pretending like this isn't real, she urged, clutching the edge of the bed with white knuckles. Just then, the door creaked open, and a nurse stepped in with a clipboard, breaking the moment. But instead of pulling her father back, it seemed to give him strength. Maybe, he murmured softly, a hint of hope flickering in his tired eyes. Maybe we can start with the truth. Amelia's heart soared at those words, but it was still uncertain. Could this fragile moment ignite enough courage in them both to confront the past? As the nurse adjusted the four and left the room, Amelia gripped her father's hand tightly for the first time. It felt warm, a pulse of connection amidst the uncertainty. But outside the sterile walls, in the world that awaited her, what awaited them both? Could they overcome their separate battles together, or would they fall apart under the weight of their unspoken truths? She took a deep breath, determined and resolved, but still teetering on the edge of fear. Their journey was just beginning. Dad, will you promise to try? She pressed, vulnerability spilling over the edge of hope. And as much as she longed for a definitive answer, all she could do was wait, suspended in the delicate silence, ready to step into the unknown. Amelia felt the weight of her father's hand, and it was as if they drifted in a sea of shared memories, both buoyed and submerged by unspoken words. The clock ticked on the wall, each second a reminder of the urgency pressing down on them like the thick hospital air. Dad, she began again, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure where to lead them, but if they were going to start facing the truth, they needed to find a way to navigate through the minefield of their past. Amelia, he interrupted softly, his eyes turning serious, tell me about your life. I want to know what I've missed. The request twisted in her chest. Was this really what he wanted? She had spent so long trying to fit her experiences into the narrow frame of their fractured relationship. But there it was, his lifeline reaching for hers, an invitation to bridge the divide. Okay, she said, more resolute now. It's been rough, Dad. I moved back into town last year. Work's been a struggle, and she hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Would he handle it? Would he retreat again? The truth, he urged, his voice low. I can take it. It felt like a promise, and something inside her unfurled. I feel lost sometimes. Like I'm walking through fog. I thought coming back would help me find myself, but it just feels like I'm drowning. His brow furrowed in concern, and she saw the familiarity of his worry etched in the lines of his face. You're not drowning, he said firmly. You're learning to swim again. It's okay to lean on someone. The unguarded authenticity in his words ignited a flicker of warmth in her chest. I wish we had talked about this before. I thought it was just me. But maybe you felt the same way. He looked away, lost in thought, and the silence stretched between them, thickening like a ribbon of conflicting emotions. I didn't want to burden you with my fears. I watched you thrive, thought you were better off without my shadow. You are not just a shadow, Dad. Her voice intensified. You're my father. I want you to be part of my life. For a moment, she could almost see the years lifting from his shoulders. Then let us help each other. I will try. His voice broke, and the weight of those words hung heavy in the air, but before she could reply, the door swung open again, and the doctor entered. His expression was serious, clipboard in hand. Mr. Henderson, the doctor began, and the room shifted as attention redirected to him. As he spoke about treatment options, Amelia felt a familiar anxiety tighten in her chest. What did that mean for their fragile moment? Would they return to silence again? Do you understand? The doctor asked, looking directly at her father, who was now saturated with a mixture of concern and resolve. Yes, I'll try, her father replied firmly, but Amelia could feel the familiar walls starting to form again. Behind the doctor's authoritative voice, she sensed the potential for another retreat into solitude, a space where words got lost and struggles remained unacknowledged. As the conversation continued, Amelia's heart raced. She could feel her resolve slipping. How could she ensure that he stayed open, that they remained connected? Again, she gripped her father's hand, squeezing tighter. No matter what happens, Dad, promise me you won't shut me out. We're in this together. His eyes were the only response she needed, a slight nod, but the depth of emotion behind it swept over her like a wave. Yet still, uncertainty loomed large. Could they really break the cycles of their past? As the doctor finished and left the room, Amelia swallowed hard. Dad, she whispered, heart racing again. What if we're not enough, even together? His expression turned serious, and that familiar fear swept through her. Could this be the moment he faltered again? The air crackled with unsaid words, and the shadows of their past loomed larger than life. Would they face the truth, or retreat once more? She waited as hope burgeoned alongside doubt, with their journey still aching to unfold. The silence in the room felt deafening after the doctor left, and Amelia couldn't shake the tension that filled the spaces between them. She could see her father's jaw tightening, like a rubber band stretched to its limit. It was troubling, watching him wrestle with uncertainties, and it mirrored the turmoil inside her. Dad, she said again, her voice quivering. You didn't answer my question. What if we're not enough? He took a deep breath, and for a moment, she thought he might crumble. But instead, he straightened slightly in his chair, his eyes locked onto hers. Amelia, he said, deliberate, almost as if he were selecting each word carefully, we can be enough if we let ourselves try. But it's going to take hard work from both of us. Hard work, she repeated, the phrase grounding her. She didn't want to dive into the depths of what that work would require. The idea of pulling at old wounds made her stomach twist, but their moment of connection felt so fragile, as if a single misstep could shatter it entirely. What do we even begin with? She asked, half to herself. The weight of their past loomed large, years of absence and hurt felt insurmountable. Start wherever you feel comfortable, he replied, his voice almost gentle. Talk to me. Dredge up the things we avoided. She shivered at the thought. But it was also a challenge, a push to face years of silence. I don't know how to bring it up, she said, her voice playful to cover the quivering doubt. What do I do, hand you a list of grievances? He chuckled softly, but the laughter fell quickly into a sobering fade. We don't need lists. Just honesty. It's what we've both been craving, isn't it? The challenge hung in the air between them like a ghost of their past. Amelia's heart thudded in her chest as she mulled over his question. Yeah, maybe, she murmured, a wave of emotion crashing over her, leaving her breathless. Maybe? He echoed, leaning forward. You feel it too, don't you? The ache for something more? Tears brimmed in her eyes. I thought when I moved back home it would all be better. Fix everything. But it didn't. Everything's just broken. Brokenness doesn't mean it's lost, he said, emotion thick in his voice. It means there's still a chance for something new, something. He paused, searching her eyes. Something stronger. Amelia paused, biting down on her lip to hold back a tremor of hope. What if I don't know how to make it strong? He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers, a comforting warmth amidst their fraught exchange. Then we figure it out together. We take it step by step. I'm learning from you, Amelia. I will try to be the father you need. His words pierced through her defenses, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. Amelia gripped his hand tighter, grounding herself in the realization that perhaps this moment was the beginning of rebuilding not just their relationship, but their identities as well. Okay, she whispered, her voice steadier than before. Let us try to understand each other. As a tentative smile broke through her anxious facade, she felt the first stirrings of something deeper than fear and ache for genuine connection. But just as hope surged, the door opened again. Her mother stepped inside, her face taut with worry. What is going on? Her mother asked, eyes darting between them. Amelia felt the risk of needing to explain everything all over again, the possibility of retreat looming as thick as fog. Would this be a step back? Would the emotional walls rise again? Her heart raced, but she couldn't afford to let that happen. Mom, she began, her voice cutting through the uncertainty. I think we need to talk. Would they finally confront the truths they had avoided? Amelia braced herself, her mother's presence like a spotlight in the dimly lit room. She had to keep hold of this fragile moment with her father, lest it evaporate like mist. She felt the heaviness in the air, a pressure that made every heartbeat echo. Mom, she started again, pushing through the knot in her throat, we need to talk about everything. Her mother's brows furrowed, and a flicker of something worry, perhaps, crossed her face. What do you mean? Is something wrong? No, not wrong, Amelia thought. Just complicated, a tangled mess they couldn't keep hiding anymore. It's about Dad. What he's been going through. Her mother's expression shifted, her body tensing slightly as she crossed her arms. Amelia could see years of unspoken tension in that small action, the bricks of resentment and misunderstanding stacked high. I thought we weren't going to revisit all that, she said, her voice hardening. Some things are better left in the past. No. The word burst from Amelia like a firecracker, surprising her. She loved her mother, she did, but there was a torrent of feelings bubbling to the surface. We can't just sweep it all away. There's so much left unsaid. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. I want us to heal. The room went silent, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was thick with the weight of years. Amelia's heart pounded as she stole a glance at her father, who seemed torn between her plea and his wife's reluctance. Her mother's gaze was icy, yet something flickered in her eyes. Fear, perhaps. You think talking will change anything? It never does. It just opens old wounds. Maybe it's time those wounds are finally treated, Amelia shot back, the anger fueling her resolve. We can't move forward if we keep ignoring what's been done. Her father finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. No one is asking for perfection, but talking is the first step. We need to be honest, all three of us. No more walls. Can you give it a chance? For a moment, the world held its breath. Amelia could almost hear her mother calculating the risks, weighing her emotions against what was familiar comfortable silence. It's not that easy, she said finally, but it was a concession, a crack in her defenses. Maybe it can be, Amelia urged, feeling hope tiptoeing back into the room. It starts here. Right now, Mom. Together. Her mother's lips pressed into a fine line, but her eyes glistened. What's the point in digging up the past? Because it's still a part of us, Amelia replied, her voice trembling yet firm. If we don't face the truth, how can we grow? How can we love each other when we're haunted by the things we want to talk about? Amelia could see the internal struggle etched across her mother's face, a battle between the fear of pain and the hope of healing. "I don't know if I'm ready," her mother whispered, almost inaudibly. Taking a deep breath, Amelia leaned forward, sensing the gravity of this moment. "Maybe none of us are. But if we don't take the first step, we'll never find out what we can become." The air shifted as they all held their breath, each waiting for the next move. "Fine," her mother finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let us talk. But I can't promise anything will change." Amelia felt a rush of optimism swell inside her. "That's a start," she replied gently, but as her mother and father exchanged glances, uncertainty lingered. Had they truly begun the journey toward healing, or merely scratched the surface of buried pain? With the past waiting to be unfolded and secrets to finally confront, Amelia realized this was only the beginning. Just as hope flickered stronger, the phone rang, cutting through the charged atmosphere. "Who is it?" her father asked, frowning slightly. Amelia's heart raced again. What if it was news that could change everything? What if the call brought more challenges they weren't ready for? As the ringing echoed, one question filled the room: could they handle whatever came next? Amelia's heart raced as the phone continued to ring, its sharp sound slicing through the tension like a knife. She felt her mother's eyes dart towards her, an unspoken question hanging between them. What if this call knocked them off the fragile ledge they had just begun to teeter upon? "Shouldn't you answer it?" her father prompted, his voice strained, trying to uphold the moment of potential connection they had just started to build. A bead of sweat trickled down Amelia's back. Taking a breath to steady herself, Amelia crossed the room, her feet dragging as though weighted by the gravity of the moment. She lifted the receiver, the cool plastic against her ear grounding her as she pressed the button. "Hello?" A familiar voice crackled through the speaker, filled with urgency. "Amelia? It's Chris. I'm so glad you answered." The world outside the room shifted when she heard his voice. Chris, her childhood friend, his laughter echoing around long-forgotten summer days. But buried beneath the joy was a mixture of sorrow and pressure. Amelia felt as if she were holding a storm in her hands. "Chris, what's wrong?" she asked, a knot tightening in her stomach. His voice usually brought ease, but now it carried something heavier. "Something's happened with my dad," he said, tension lacing his words. "He's in the hospital. He collapsed during his shift. I don't know what to do. I could really use your support right now." The gravity of his words sent shockwaves through her. In that moment, her mind rebelled against the reunion she had longed for. One step forward, and now this. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, Chris." "Of course, I'll be there. Just give me the details." She jotted down the hospital information quickly, her hands shaking. Her own father's struggles suddenly felt distant compared to Chris's urgent need. The connection she'd been so eager to forge with her family felt tenuous against the backdrop of a new impending crisis. "Amelia?" Chris's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, gentle yet firm. "I know this is a lot to ask, but can you bring your mom? She's always been there for us, and I think it would help if we all came together." A rush of panic surged through Amelia. Her mother, not quite ready for this conversation about their own past, now being pulled into someone else's heartbreak. The vulnerability felt like too much to bear. "I don't know if you don't have to tell her everything," Chris cut in, sensing her hesitation. "But her support could mean a lot. You both loved my dad. I really need you, and I think she does too deep down." Amelia's heart twisted painfully. Sure, her mom loved Chris's dad, the bond had been real. Could they put their own issues aside? As she glanced back at her mother, who was watching her with a mix of curiosity and concern, Amelia felt a surge of determination. Healing didn't have to be a solo journey. Maybe this was the moment for them to lean on each other through the chaos. "Okay," Amelia said, her voice steadier. "We'll be there." She ended the call and turned back to face her parents. The atmosphere felt electric, charged with new purpose. "Mom, we've got to go. Chris's father is in the hospital. He needs us." For a heartbeat, her mother looked as though she might turn away, but then something shifted. The flicker of fear in her eyes gave way to resolve. "Let us go." As they moved toward the door, there was a strange sense of connection, though frail. They were stepping from one crisis into another, but Amelia held on to the hope that this journey could shed light on both their past and present. And as they walked into the night, Amelia wondered, could this unexpected detour finally break them free from the chains of silence? Just before they stepped into Chris's world, an unsettling thought lingered in her mind. What truths might surface in the wake of tragedy? The hospital loomed in the distance, its fluorescent lights casting a cold glow over the parking lot. Amelia felt a shiver creep up her spine as they stepped out of the car, her parents flanking her. The urgency in Chris's voice echoed in her ears, and memories of laughter with him and his family flooded her mind. But now, everything was different. As they pushed through the glass doors, the sterile scent of antiseptic washed over them. The atmosphere felt heavy, whispers filled the air like ghostly shadows. Amelia's heart pounded. She reached for her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. This small act felt monumental, a silent agreement to face whatever came next. Together, they approached the reception desk, where a nurse was filling out papers. "Excuse me, we're here to see Chris Thompson," Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Room 305, the nurse replied, barely looking up. "Just take the elevator to the 3rd floor and follow the signs." The elevator ride felt like an eternity. Each ding of the floor numbers teased them, and Amelia felt the rising tide of anxiety bubbling within. What state was Chris in? Could his father be okay? As they stepped out into the 3rd floor hallway, Amelia let out a shaky breath. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and she could hear the distant beeping of machines mixing with the muffled sounds of agony and persistence that filled the ward. They walked cautiously towards room 305, and Amelia knocked softly before stepping inside. Chris was seated next to his father, slumped on a hospital bed, tubes poking out of both arms. The sight hit Amelia like a punch. His father, once so vibrant, now appeared frail like a leaves in autumn, clinging to the last bursts of life. "Chris," she said, voice cracking. He looked up, brown eyes swimming with tears, relief washing over his features as he recognized her. "I'm here." Chris was on his feet in an instant, rushing to embrace her. It felt familiar, like being wrapped in a warm blanket, but the weight of sorrow dampened the moment. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Her mother entered behind them, lingering near the doorway. Chris's head turned, and for a moment, they shared a silent acknowledgement of their intertwined past. Chris's gaze darted cautiously between them, burdened yet thankful. Amelia backed away from Chris, taking in the room the sterile white walls, the small window barely letting in light, her eyes finally landing on Chris's father. He looked so peaceful in his slumber, unaware of the storm swirling outside. "How long has he been here?" Amelia asked quietly, trying to steady her voice. "Since this morning," Chris replied, his eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and raw hope. "They think maybe it was stress. The doctors are doing everything they can." Tears brimmed in Amelia's eyes. She remembered countless conversations around Chris's kitchen table, shared meals, the easy laughter. Now that felt like a universe away. "You're not alone in this," she said, turning her attention to Chris, who looked so small and lost. At that moment, the heaviness in the room shifted slightly. Amelia realized it wasn't just Chris's burden to bear, they were all thrust into this turmoil together. Maybe this was the moment they needed to connect, to break free of their own pasts. As they stood in that hospital room, a crack formed in the shell of silence that had encased both families for so long. Could their shared grief spark hidden truths from long ago waiting to be revealed? Before she could explore that thought further, a doctor walked in, urgency in her stride. "Chris, we need to talk." The room froze, and Amelia felt her heart drop. What news followed the doctor's entrance? Would they face more heartbreak, or could they find the resilience that might bring healing? Chris's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the doctor, anxiety etched across his face. Amelia felt a wave of unease wash over her. She wanted to be strong, to support Chris, but fear churned in her stomach like a storm. "Is it about your father?" Chris managed to ask, his voice trembling. The doctor nodded, her expression serious yet compassionate. "I'm afraid his condition is more concerning than we initially thought. We need to discuss his treatment options and possible next steps." Amelia squeezed her mother's hand as they exchanged worried glances. They could feel Chris's internal struggle, the battle between hope and despair. "Can he get better?" Chris asked desperately, clenching and unclenching his fists. The doctor hesitated before answering. "We'll do everything we can, but I need you to understand the gravity of the situation." The words hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Chris's face paled, and Amelia could see the world narrowing around him, the weight of fear becoming tangible. She stepped closer to Chris, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Whatever it is, we're here for you," she said softly, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her mind. "Thank you," Chris replied, his eyes shining with unshed tears, and Amelia felt the bond between them solidify in that moment. It was as if their shared fear had forged an unbreakable connection. The doctor began explaining the next steps, tests, procedures, possible outcomes, but all Amelia could focus on was Chris. She watched as he absorbed each piece of information, the crumbling facade of strength cracking little by little. "Can we see him?" Chris asked suddenly, interrupting. "Of course. Just a moment." The doctor left the room, and the silence that ensued felt suffocating. Amelia could see Chris's fingers tremble. "What if he doesn't wake up?" he whispered, the vulnerability raw and unmistakable. "Then we'll be here, Chris. We'll face it together, whatever comes." "You're not alone," she promised, squeezing his shoulder. She hoped her words would cling to him like a lifeline. Moments later, the doctor returned, guiding them into the room where Chris's father lay. Each step felt like a march into the unknown, and Amelia's heart raced. Chris pushed the door open, revealing his father's frail form. The beeping machines filled the silence, and although the sight tore at Amelia's heart, she was determined to stay composed for Chris. At the bedside, Chris knelt, whispering softly to his father, pouring out his fears and hopes, unaware of the tears streaming down his cheeks. Amelia's eyes dripped with empathy as she witnessed this raw moment of love and fear. It felt as though time stood still, capturing the essence of family and struggle in a single frame. "Dad, I'm here. You're not alone, okay?" Chris said, voice cracking. He touched his father's hand, a small act that carried a universe of meaning. Suddenly, Chris's father's fingers twitched. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Had he heard? Was he fighting to come back to them? "Dad, can you hear me?" Chris's voice was a symphony of hope, rising like a flame in the dark. The machines continued their steady rhythm, and for a heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted. Amelia felt hope ignite in her chest, a flicker of light against the backdrop of uncertainty. Then, the doctor leaned closer, examining the machines with intent. "Their essay response," she declared, and Chris's face lit up with a fierce hope. "His heart is strong," the doctor continued, but Amelia noticed the caution in her eyes. "He still needs our help." Chris's smile faltered, and reality dawned again. Could they truly navigate this uncertainty together? Would the strength of their bond be enough to weather the storms ahead? As Amelia stood beside Chris, a question lingered in the air: how far would they go to protect the ones they loved? Before they could ponder, they were reminded that the battle for Chris's father was just beginning. Chris's breath came in quick bursts as the weight of the doctor's words pressed down on him. He grasped his father's hand tighter, as if that small gesture could tether him to the world for just a little longer. Amelia stood close, every fiber of her being attuned to Chris's silent pleading. In that room, a mixture of hope and despair lingered, swirling around them like a thick fog. "Can you hear me?" Chris's voice quivered, breaking the tense quiet. He leaned closer, his forehead almost brushing against his father's. There was no response, just the rhythmic beeping of the machines, an unsettling reminder of his father's fragile state. Amelia felt a pull tugging at her heart. She wished she could take away Chris's pain, to somehow lift the burden resting on his shoulders. But all she could do was be there for him, an anchor in a storm. "It's okay," she whispered, not entirely convinced herself. He's fighting, Chris. Just keep talking to him. Chris nodded, his fierce resolve cracking under the pathos of the moment. Dad, I need you. Don't leave me, he pleaded, and Amelia's heart ached at the desperation woven into his words. The doctor stood at the foot of the bed, quietly observing. Her presence felt both reassuring and suffocating. We're going to do everything we can. But we need to monitor his progress closely, she said gently, as if recognizing the heavy moment they were sharing. Chris's eyes flickered with fear. What do you mean everything? Is there still treatment? What's left to do? His voice rose, almost accusing. The uncertainty bristled in the air between them, tangible and sharp. Right now, we focus on keeping him stable, the doctor replied, her hands poised over her clipboard. We will reassess regularly and keep you updated. Frustration boiled within Chris. Updates 1T make him better, he snapped, his voice breaking. Amelia placed a hand gently on Chris's arm, trying to calm the rising tide of emotions. Let us just breathe for a moment, okay? She said, her voice soothing. In that fragile silence, Chris visibly softened, the fight going out of him. He turned back to his father again, grounding himself in that familiar presence. I remember when you taught me how to ride a bike, Dad. You were so patient, always encouraging me to keep trying, he spoke softly, recalling cherished memories. Amelia held her breath, the warmth of Chris's words flowing like a lifeline. She knew he was reaching across an expanse, hoping his father could hear him, feel him. Suddenly, a commotion broke from the hallway. A group of nurses burst into the room, and the atmosphere shifted abruptly. We need to check his vitals, one of them said with urgency. Chris flinched, stepping back as they moved quickly to his father's side. Is he okay? What's happening? Chris's voice rose again, panic lacing his tone. Amelia felt her own heart race as she stepped closer to Chris, their shared fear radiating between them. The nurses worked with swift precision, their expressions focused, and Amelia found herself holding her breath. Minutes felt like hours as they awaited answers. The machines beeped methodically, a stark reminder of the uncertainty that surrounded them. Chris clenched his jaw in frustration, tears pooling in his eyes. Finally, one of the nurses turned. He's stable for now, but we'll need to monitor him closely for any further changes, she said. Chris's entire body sagged in relief but was soon replaced by the weight of reality once again. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly crushed. What does that mean? He asked, looking to the nurse like she might have all the answers. We'll keep you updated as things develop, she replied, before leaving the room with the rest of her team. Amelia took a deep breath, trying to steady her own emotions. Whatever happens, we will figure this out together, she said, urging hope into her voice. Chris turned to her and for the first time in what felt like ages, a flicker of gratitude crossed his face. I don't know what I would do without you, he admitted, his voice trembling. But as they shared a moment of connection, a loud beep erupted from the machines, and Chris's father's heart rate began to spike, painting the stark reality of their situation in bold strokes again. Dad! Chris shouted, dread pooling in his stomach. They were still hovering on the brink of uncertainty. What awaited them in the hours ahead? Would they have the strength to face whatever was to come? Amelia's heart raced as she watched the frantic movements in the room. The nurses rushed in and out, their voices sharp yet calm, bringing forth an urgency that fueled the air with anxiety. Chris's father's heart rate jumped, the beeping machines announcing alarm like a siren. What's happening? He shouted, fear lacing his words as he stepped back instinctively. Stay close, Amelia whispered, her presence grounding him amidst the chaos, but internally, dread coiled tightly around her heart. Chris was teetering on the edge, battling with uncertainty, and Amelia couldn't help feeling the weight of his worry crashing down over her. The doctors exchanged fast, clipped sentences, and as much as Amelia wanted to understand, fear clouded her mind. She could see the tension in Chris's shoulders, the struggle of someone holding on with everything they had yet feeling so powerless. What if he began, choking on his words, the tremor in his voice echoing a deep-seated fear. Chris, listen, Amelia said, leaning closer, squeezing his hand firmly, we have to be here for him. Right now, he needs us. The intensity in her voice cut through the fear, reminding them both that no matter how dark the moment, they still had each other. I can't lose him, Amelia, Chris murmured, tears shimmering in his eyes as he fought to hold on to hope. The desperation in his gaze pulled at her heartstrings, and she felt the familiar sting of tears threatening to spill. None of us are going anywhere just yet, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. We need to focus on the small victories. Just then, the doctor stepped closer, her presence both comforting and imposing. The heart monitors are showing fluctuations, but we're stabilizing him for now. We're ready to take further measures if needed, she said, her voice low but firm. That's good, isn't it? Chris asked, a spark of hope igniting momentarily, yet his face fell again as he noticed the way the doctor's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, a sign of cautious optimism. Let us not count our blessings too soon, the doctor said, studying the readings with a furrowed brow. We need to prepare for possible complications. The words felt heavy, weighty like stones in Amelia's heart. Yet amidst the uncertainty, something shifted within Chris. He turned back to his father, his voice dropping to a soft whisper. Dad, if you can hear me, fight. I need you to fight. Each word came out like a prayer, infused with unwavering belief. As they gathered closer, Amelia felt the connection thickening in the air. They were all in this together now. Moments passed, marked by the rhythm of the machines, and the tension in the room began to ease, just slightly. Chris kept his father's south hand close and gradually, the beep softened, evening out. He's stabilizing. One nurse called out, and for a moment, a collective breath was shared among them, with hope awakening from the shadows. They watched Chris's father, each second bringing the promise of healing. Chris's determination shone brightly. We are going to get through this, he stated, a newfound strength radiating from him. Amelia felt the burden lift, if only a little. She whispered support, and Chris smiled through the tears, their hearts entwined with a surge of resilience. As they held vigil, a glimmer of hope sparked in Amelia's chest. She realized that progress didn't mean perfection. Sometimes it meant showing up and being present for one simple moment. And in that space of vulnerability, they were all beginning to unravel the threads of their own battles, braving the storm together, fueled by love. I'm so proud of you, Chris, Amelia said quietly, breaking the silence that had swaddled their fears. She could see Chris blooming, his spirit rising like a phoenix from ashes. You've shown me strength today. His eyes met hers, warmth reflected in their depths. We have to share that strength, don't we? He replied, a soft smile breaking through the storm. Just then, the doctor re-entered, and the atmosphere shifted once again. We're going to move your father to a more stable Unit 4. Observation. It's a good sign, she announced, bringing forth a wave of relief. Thank you, Chris breathed, the weight of gratitude washing over him. In that moment, they both understood, healing would be a process, not just for his father but also for their shared journey ahead. Together, they could peel back their layers, face their demons, and renew the bonds that had once flickered low. As they left the room, venturing into the bustling corridors of the hospital, Amelia's heart echoed with a newfound clarity. They were stepping into the unknown, yes, but also stepping forward towards growth, towards a family figuring out how to love better. Here's to new beginnings, she whispered under her breath, and as they walked hand in hand, she felt that they could tackle whatever came next. With tentative yet bold steps, they would navigate the complicated landscape of healing. Together, this was just the beginning. Now, as we wrap up this incredible transformation, I need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this story of hope and healing. Comment below your reactions and feelings about the ending. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It could spark the change they've been waiting for. You need to show your support as a true fan. Let us grow together.